here for your Sydney Swans. Cheer the red and the white, honour the name by day and by night.
Welcome back to A Bevy of Bloods, a fan podcast of the Sydney Swans Football Club.
So to all you loyal Swans out there, you just can't get enough of the red and the white.
Fluff up your tail feathers and settle in for a potentially biased yarn about all things to do with our beloved Bloods.
While our loyal Swans are marching onwards to victory.
G'day there, Cygnets and Swanlings. Welcome back to A Bevy of Bloods. You're joined as always by the crew from Sydney. I'm Harps, and I have with me Bevy founder Noddy.
That's right, you loyal Swans fans. Today we're going to be talking about our loss against the Suns and look ahead to the game against the Giants, the Sydney Stoush. And remember, if you like what you hear, give us a follow. Righto, let's kick things off with a quick game recap.
Sydney Stoush. I like that, Noddy. It's a good one.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
I threw everyone. Yeah, it's like already looking at next week.
Yeah, it's good not to look back. But we need to look back. Performance as bad as that, Noddy, we cannot just gloss over it. We need to talk about it and we need to assess what we can do. Anyway,
Yeah.
Sunday afternoon, Gold Coast Stadium. We were pumped by the Suns. 38 points in the end, but honestly, it could have been much, much more. 17 goals, 15, 32 scoring shots for the Suns, 117 to 12, 7, 79, and that was a lot worse until close to the end for us too. Yeah, really, really, really dreadful second half, frankly. So, Noddy, let's start where we always start. Let's keep it simple. It's a mantra I wish some of these Swans players would return to. Give me 3 words, Noddy. What did you think of the game?
Wizards or witches' hats. And witches' hats is hyphenated, so it counts as one word. But mate, we go from probably our best first quarter of the year to like just shades of the grand final. Like just didn't show up at all in the second half. It was just, that 12-goal run from the end of second quarter through to halfway through the fourth. It's like, where were we? We were out on the field. We were cones. We were orange cones, and the Suns were just having a bit of a training run around us. Like it was. I'm speechless. Like it's so confusing. I mean, it was lack of effort. It's game plan. Like the Suns played well, but like we just didn't turn up. There was no contest. It was so far from Bloods culture and Bloods footy, and there's been a bit of that this year. And I know there's injuries, and we're going to go into that a little bit more as we chat through the points tonight, but there's still a lot of players out there that should be performing, and really they're not. And it's really disappointing to see because it's getting to the point where, never say never and never give up, but it's getting very close to slipping away or being out of our control. Right. And that must be frightening for a first year coach. But yeah. Before that, mate, how about you? 3 words. Give it to me.
I'm going to do a Michael Jackson impression here. I only actually have 1 word, but I'll use it 3 times, which is bad,
Nice.
bad. I actually didn't watch the game live. I watched the replay because I was doing something. But that is the kind of game, Noddy. We've been to games. I've walked out of those games before. Like when a team that you spend so much time investing in and watching and following and spending money on. I mean, let's think about people like Sam, right? Spending all their time and thousands of dollars up and down the country. When they turn in a performance like that as a team, which is just gutless, unprofessional. I could go on and on. I don't want to watch them. I don't want to watch them. I don't want to dedicate my time. I've got better things to do with my time. I thought that was appalling, honestly.
So I'm of a similar sentiment, except I'm a glutton for punishment, and
you love it. I know.
I'll never stop going back. Because
Noddy was one of the few Swans fans after the grand final who sat and watched the Lions up on the stage, lifting, singing the song 5 times. Noddy sat and watched the whole. I was out of there. I think possibly three-quarter time.
Mind you, mate, this Suns game, it really pushed my limits. I'll tell you what, I was in and out of the lounge room for the fourth quarter. I'll tell you what, I did have some young kids going bonkers, but I mean, they were showing more competition than some of the boys. But yeah, look, I think we should be clear. Like, you know, we are Sydney siders. We love the Swans, and we're talking about a very disappointing effort from the team. But I mean, I'm not going to stop. You know, it never gets to the point of stop following the Swans. You've got to be careful of that, I think,
No.
because, and I know you don't either, but you just don't want to slip into that sort of that rhetoric of, you know, fair bandwagon supporters, fair weather fans. I think Sydney siders we're discerning fans, and like we crave excellence because that's all we've ever known. Like really, other than the slim years from 82 to mid 90s, right? But then from there, from 2000 onwards, basically, or whatever it is, even before that, it's 96. It's 25 final series from 29 years or something like that. Like we're just used to, we've been spoiled, right? We're used to competitive showings. We're used to finals. And so, you know, there's years when it's not going to go that way. We're aware of that, but it's disappointing because I guess we expect better because of what we've been exposed to. So it's not our fault.
No, I agree. I mean, you wouldn't ever stop following them. But look, equally, I mean, there's so much we could talk about there, Noddy, right? And we need to talk. I think we need to talk quite big picture because for me, that is a performance I've seen a number of times, and it's disappointed me every time. So if we think at a team level, right? Grand final last year, the Port Adelaide game last year, the Bulldogs game at the SCG last year, 22 grand final, Hawthorn grand final, 2014. Just games where we are. I don't even know if we're on the pitch. You know, just get blown away. Can't even touch the ball. You know. It makes me angry thinking about it, right? But I mean, it's not the same team, right? I mean, if you think back to 2014, 2022, even last year's grand final, this is a different team, right? Different coach now as well, and it's I'm worrying that if we're thinking that we have that performance in us, if you're an opposing team player and you turn up, you think, you know, we could get one of those days where we absolutely roll them, right? If we put the pressure on, they'll fold like a house of cards, and equally we can play really well, and sometimes we take teams for a run as well, but to have that kind of performance consistently in our locker, it really concerns me.
Yeah, I think, and you're right. I think like across those performances over the years, it's different composition. So it's difficult to compare, but the trend is, well, the constant is the club. And so you worry if it's like a DNA thing, I think you mentioned. And you want to believe it's not. And I don't think it is to a degree, but and we don't talk in cliches on this potty, do we? We avoid them, but it literally is a game of like you have to play 4 quarters of footy, and you have to be competitive. You have to fight and want to tackle and pressure players, and everyone's got to do it from your $1 million players down to your rookies. And if everyone's not buying in, and everyone's not like playing out of their skin, then when like basically you're not going to be able to stay in each quarter, and to concede 12 goals in a row, 79 points to 12-7 to 0-2,
and a heap of behinds. Like those 12 goals could have been 16, 17 goals.
That's right, 12 goals, 7 behinds, 79 points.
Yeah,
they kicked on our 0-2, and Corey had one out on the full at some point. I can't remember if it was before or after Blakey's run of 3, but like that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable at junior level, and it's unpalatable at AFL level. And I think our players can play better. I'm not quite sure what's going on. So that's the thing. Like it's, you know, in all these games that you've mentioned, like certainly the grand finals, like the Geelong one, like 6 goals down in first quarter, and then it's basically just playing catch up. The disappointing thing about this game is that we played so well first quarter, and were competitive in the second, and then just fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
And then,
Look,
as you said, there were some junk
10
time
goal,
goals at the end.
a 10-goal first half, like that's a good return in any game. I mean, it's 9 goals, 5, I think, but a 60-point first half, that'll get you in most games, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And then they just make a few adjustments and tighten up lift their pressure. And we've got nothing around the contest, clearances, but it was like skill errors, handballs, kicks, turnovers, and every time there was a turnover, you could just see the confidence draining from the
Yeah.
players.
Yeah.
And then that's what led to those you're looking and watching us stand still, and they're just running amok. They're just having fun. Just
Yeah,
Dimmer
look,
and
I mean,
the Gold Coast Suns.
they were laughing at us. You know, in defence, they were laughing. You see, I can't remember. Blakey gave away a free kick, I think. This is late in the third. And they were pulling him around and laughing in his face, right? And I don't blame them. And I'm sorry, I don't know the name of the Gold Coast player. You'll remember it, Noddy. He kicked like a 60-metre goal that went
Bailey
over.
Humphrey.
Yeah.
Bailey Humphrey, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It played really well, by the way. I thought it played very. But I mean, I was looking at that goal. He must have kicked that 70 metres, right? And I thought they've scored 6 or 7 in a row. They feel untouchable. He's 70 metres out and thinks, I'm just going to blast it and nails it, you know. And your point is right. It's if the confidence breeds confidence in the people around you, and that leads to everyone playing better. And on the flip side, you know, if people go off 5-10% and start to be, you know, a second from the ball or 5 meters from the ball or whatever it is, it really compounds badly, and it did. It was yeah. Look, Noddy, we should let's be fair, right? Let's think about the first half, because we're not going to find the answers here, and if we could, we'd be straight in the face Coxie, right? Not that he'd listen.
I think he's open to all ideas at this point, but
that's right. Maybe we have got the answers. Anyway,
yeah, where's the suggestion box? Yeah.
If we start at the start, right? That was as good as we played that first quarter, right? And we played well first quarter against Brisbane. We've done it a few times this year already. Incisive, decisive, good passing, good leading, good goal kicking. I mean, what do you think the first half performance, at least, if we're thinking positives?
Well, yeah, just like you said. I mean, that has been a talking point this year when we've had those pleasing first quarters, because last year was just like they were our weakness last year, right? We had just shocking first quarters and had to catch up through brilliance for usually like a 5, 6, 7 goal run from our superstars.
I mean, that's what we were doing last year. Yeah, what the Suns did. That's what we were doing last year.
Yeah. And so to have a pleasing first quarter, you never want to speak too soon, right? But I think I remember texting the group going, I quite like how we're playing football right now, or something like that. Like it was like you don't want to speak too soon. And then you have to expect it swings around a bit. Like it's game of momentum right at this level. And the other thing we should acknowledge is that the Suns have, especially under Stewie Dew, they've always been a bit of a bogey team for us. And so, since Dimmer has come in, I haven't looked at the numbers. There's too much passion running around this week. But like, yeah, I think a coach that experienced coming up against a first year coach is always going to be a test, like a test. And the Suns at home have a bit of their own Gabatoire type thing going. I don't know what they call Carrara and their home fortress thing, but or People's First Stadium, keep people out. I don't. There's a joke there. I'm not smart enough to make it right now, but they're very good at home, and that's something we have to acknowledge. And it was hot, and as Warzy said, who went to the game, our sound guy, it was hot, but it wasn't that hot. There were a few players dry reaching at halftime, but I mean, maybe that was because they knew what the effort they were about to dish out. But yeah, look, I think the way to go from a very pleasing first quarter to a competitive second quarter, albeit disappointing the way we finished it with those 2 Jed Walters goals, you take that. You go, okay, if we can get 2 more quarters like that, then this is going to be a hard, we're going to have earned it. If we don't get there, we still, we won't have lowered our colours. But then it was a game of 2 halves. It really was. Footy cliche. But
yes.
I don't know. Like, I mean, there was those Blakey swung forward and kicked 3 goals. It's so easy, guys. I don't know what you've not been doing, but we'll talk about a few of the individual players. But it was one of those games where it was just such a bad second half team performance that it was kind of tough isolating individual performances. But I don't know. I don't know at what point we need to talk about the idea of the injury crisis.
Yeah, look, let's go now, Nolly. I was just thinking we need to think. We need to. It was such a bad performance. I think we need to think big picture about where. So yeah, look, the injuries are playing a big part of it. Any team in any code will tell you if you're missing 10, 11 first team players. I don't know what it is, including kind of 3-4 superstars. You're going to struggle, So injuries are playing a part of it. I don't want to excuse that the second half. The effort is what upset me about the second half, and anyone can put in effort, good or bad. But look, let's talk about the injuries. Right, we picked up a couple more as well. Patton injured, Wicks injured, I think, during the week as well.
Yep. So he was out, and that's Patton came in, and look, he wasn't. He had a few moments that were a bit shaky, but he played a role until he himself sustained the calf or whatever, another soft tissue. So look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 listed on the injury list at the moment. Now, not all of those guys are in the best 22, but there's a fair chunk in there. And if you'll indulge me, I'll just. I know how you don't like
Please.
listing off lists, but Adams, Amadi, Riak, Andrew, Cunningham, Detoli, Fox, Goulden, McDonald, Mills, Papley, Patton, Wicks. I did a little thing to the group earlier with a color code thing, thinking that's how I would spark fervent conversation. I don't think I got a response, but that's okay. I think if we're really honest about ourselves here, the players that would immediately change the way we play and hopefully for the better are this, as you said, the superstars. I think everyone sees as Errol Goulden and Tom Papley.
Yep.
Like they're the two guys that immediately come in as locks
and spark
and spark. Yeah, with Goulden's kicking, two-way running, on-field leadership, and Papley's barometer, right? His spark, right? Not that he's not a most goal kicker ever, but his score involvements, his score assists, undeniable, very important.
Yeah.
And leadership. He's a 180 game player or whatever he is, right?
Yep, definitely.
And then next, like I think there's a lot of guys in this list that read out a second ago that would be in the best 22, but it's hard to know because they haven't been playing. We don't know what their form is, right? Callum Mills I think he's in a category of his own. Maybe you can put Taylor Adams next to him. These are previous All-Australian players, one time I think each, maybe two for Adams at Collingwood. I can't remember, but previous both club captains, club co-captains, all that sort of stuff, like very decorated midfielders, two different types of midfielders. And Millsy's got his defensive string to the bow, but the last time we saw him really hum was in his All-Australian year, 2022. And then it's kind of been a series of frustrating injuries and just hasn't got back on the park. So while he would be a lock, I think, it's hard to know what type of, like his first month of footy would probably be rusty. As we saw last year, right? He came back and it was sort of just a bit of a role player, more so in the defensive half. And then he got that, I think it was a hemi on the eve of grand final, and then we dropped him, although we picked Logan to play and he was injured. So anyway, that's last year. But so those guys are probably the players, the three that like are locks. But then, Joel Amadi, Logan McDonald, these guys are sort of developing key positional players, right? Yeah. Developing forwards. Logan's had a bit of swing role last year, but Amadi's playing that, forward ruck and pretty well, like applying pretty good forward pressure. Yeah. But to think that developing key forwards can't be covered by the existing players on the list, in the likes of McLean, obviously, Laddams, who's playing a bit of a role, but Francis, like it's 2025 and the most buzzed player at the moment is Aaron Francis. No one saw that headline,
I
certainly.
mean, those three names, McLean, I've always liked McLean, a great player, but Laddams and Francis have had a rough ride with the fans. But I mean, they're both to I think filled the spots quite well.
So that's my point, Harps. Like, like Amadi and Logan McDonald coming back in, they might, like on average, they're probably kicking more goals than Laddams and Francis. But are they immediately changing our like the outcome of the game?
I've been thinking about this, and just allow me to use a soccer analogy. I know you don't like talking about other codes, but you'll know who Wayne Rooney is, right?
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
English striker. Very talented. Famously presented as a little bit disinterested, and throughout his England career, there was a lot of chat about him not doing enough to keep his place and not scoring goals. And his teammates came out and said, "You don't appreciate how much easier it makes our game with him on the pitch, right? Him being there creates enough of a focus and a distraction that we have space to work, and we can work on it. We can score on his behalf, right? It does. It's not apparent, but it's happening. And look, Amadi and Logan, I think are the same, right? I think they have good stats. They're both very talented, both still developing. But I think having them on there makes the space, draws the defenders, and creates more for the rest of the team. The score we get from the rest of the players is because they're having to focus on these 2 6'6" monsters in the front line, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we shouldn't take anything away from those guys, because they're like Amadi was our top goal kicker last year, and Logan's tracking well as well. As that lead up centre half forward. So that, like, they are the pick of our key forwards, and so it hurts that they're not available. But they're not. It's not like we're missing Buddy or Jeremy Cameron or Jesse Hogan. Like that kind of that. Or like Nick Larkey. Let's say like Nick Larkey or any of the guys Ben King. Let's use the Suns' Ben King, who kicked, what did he kick, 4 or 5 goals or whatever it was. 5.
Yeah. Sure.
So it's not to that extent. Like, so it's not like what I would consider the Goulden, Papley / Mills influence, but it certainly affects the structure, and it certainly affects probably our goal scoring ability. And then I guess the next rank of players are those reliable, experienced role players, in the vein of Cunningham, Fox, Adams, and lesser in games experience, but Wicks, right? So these guys are all probably locks for the 22. But if they come in, someone's got to come out. So that's the tough question. But at the beginning of the season, I had all those guys in the best 22, and the likes of maybe, at the end of last year, it was Campbell, McInerney, maybe Jordan, who were potentially on the chopping block. And so that was the decision that needed to be made at the beginning of the season when you have all your troops fit. But so and then beyond that, it's developing players, Riak, Detoli, and Ben Patton as a depth play, but I wouldn't consider he's in that best 22 at the moment. He might by the end of the year, but you never know. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
So that any club, any AFL team that's missing whatever we want to go, somewhere from 2 to 9 of their players, varying degrees of star to role player, is going to be affected. And a good example of this, I was chatting to my mate, huge Pies fan. He said this was Collingwood's 2024 season. They were smashed by injuries, and they just couldn't get a run. And of course, everyone was saying, "Oh, it's just an excuse," but that's just what happens sometimes. There are blokes that you can't cover for, and that's probably Goulden, Papley, Mills, but less so these other guys. And so what's frustrating for me is that from a list management point of view, we seemingly don't have cover for these guys, even in the guys that have AFL experience. And beyond that, the 16 or so guys that are not the covering players, but have, they've got, like, okay, Rampy, Melican, McCartan, Blakey, Roberts, Florent. Like, Roberts is inexperienced, but still probably one of our old heads, as it were. Lloyd, Chad, Heaney, Rowie, Grundy, McInerney, Jordan, Campbell, McLean, Hayward. These are all guys, I think it's 16, that could be carrying the weight of these injuries. But for whatever reason, and I'm probably being harsh on Heaney and Rowie, who seem to be the key guys that turn up and give their all. And Grundy, although
Grundy.
not
Yep.
consistency, I don't think some of his handballing's been a bit wayward, but yeah, I mean, he's in there, right? And then Hayward, Florent, Rampy, Lloyd, like Blakey, McCartan, Chad Warner, he signed the contract and he did have a pretty good first half, but like these are the guys that we should be getting through games on, because they're in the best 22 anyway. And for whatever reason, it's not happening. And so then everyone else who's covering all those injuries, like we've spoken about, Laddams, Francis, we've got these young smalls in, Henley, Cleary's going to be a gun, Bice, Find of the Year, right? I'm missing out a couple more, but like they're not feeding off this group of players' performance because it's not there. And I don't know why it's not there. That's what I can't answer.
Yeah, and as I said, I think we're going to find the answer. I just say as a side, that's the first time I've had a look at Jared Witts, and he is, I think, the biggest man alive. I did think Grundy had a fairly tough assignment up against some guy who's 7'2" and 140 kilos. So yeah, but
he's a big unit. We let go of McAndrew, who was about his size, but maybe not as heavy. But he's a Sydney boy, Jared Witts. He's from St Ives, and I don't know how we didn't pick him up. I think the Pies picked him up as a very late pick, and then at some point went to the Suns, and he's carved out an amazing career. He's co-captain, isn't he? So yeah, he's a bloody good player. But
no, so I think we should move on to the bottom middle, right? We could spin our wheels for hours, but look, before we go on, maybe off list a little, Noddy, but I'd just like us to reflect on Cox for a while, right? Cox at that 3/4 break, he looked. Did you see him in the? Yeah, he looked.
I think when his head, he was getting a bit revved up, and I mean, look, it must be so frustrating for him because, like post grand final, and then you've got a list that everyone says is it's in the window largely, and but you hit with injuries, and this is the challenge. But the point is, there's still the existing players, and they're not, for whatever reason, they're not carrying the load. And that's sort of the disappointing thing. And I had a real rage trade moment at the end of that Suns game where I was like, bench everyone. But like, there's obviously no point in benching everyone because there's no depth because of all these injuries. We haven't really got competition in the VFL. I think the only guys that are showing consistent form in the VFL have been Laddams, Patton, Francis. Logan McDonald was recovering and now he's had another setback. Sheldrick, unfortunately, hasn't really blown anyone away at that level, but I think he would play up. I don't know what more he's got to do to get an AFL game, but look, there's not really anyone there to come up. So
and look, sometimes being dropped or being asked to sit out a week or whatever is a blessing. It's hard.
It's a rocket.
Yeah, and it gives you time to get your head set again, right? Like those, I thought as a team we lost our heads. I thought we just I don't know why we capitulated like we did, but we've seen it before, and I thought we did it again. And sometimes I think coming back in and thinking, there's no one's take my place. I'm gonna have to front up an incredibly hard game on Sunday against the Giants. Right, we'll get to that, but that's not going to be easy. That's a harrowing place to be, right? So sometimes the competition for places, giving the people the time off because of a bad performance they can springboard back, right? They can come back from it. And we don't have that at the moment. We don't have the luxury of doing that.
Yeah, that's right. And look, we're talking about these injuries. The other half of the conversation is, and I had a good chat with an old schoolmate who's an amazing Aussie rules footy player, and he's a Central Coast legend of footy, and he made a good point. It's like the high performance management department. There probably needs to have a look at that, because this amount of soft tissue injuries is not. I wouldn't say it's common. Like, you can have a run of bad luck, and that's broken legs and ACLs and stuff like that. But soft tissue issues, and this many of them, seems to be like, well, what are we doing in that space, and are we giving it enough attention? And I know we lost a guy who had been there for a while and went to Carlton at the end of last year, and we've got a new bloke overseeing it. I'm not saying it's it's his fault or but we probably need to commit a little bit more attention to that space. I'm sure they are, but we do need to acknowledge that because that's sort of the other half of it, right? And so if we've got all these things going on in the background that aren't humming, in a footy admin sense, then it's natural that it translates to the field. And I think it just, with every turnover in that game, you could see it, the confidence was draining.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
but it's just frustrating because we've got all those guys are listed out, apart from Roberts, who's 37. Everyone's pretty much 85 games and above,
Yeah.
right? All the way up to Rampy and Lloyd, who are 250, 60 games, right? So we should be getting it done. And that's the thing about Rampy and Lloyd probably, is that in a team where you've got that middle rung of junior, senior players, Blakey, McCartan, Chad, all these guys coming through up to Florent and Hayward. If they're not running the show, then guys who are like 250, 300 gamers, they sort of just on-field leaders, and you can kind of carry them because that middle rung is really driving everything. But at the moment, the middle rung is, I don't want to say MIA, but just sort of ineffective. I don't want to. I imagine me talking to these players, so I'm not going to slander them, to their face. But you're looking at guys we know that are of a higher level than what they're dishing up, and you're going, what's going on? So
yeah. Look, that's why I feel for Coxie. And I felt for Horse after the grand final last year. Like you can get a team ready, and once they step onto the pitch, right, they need to take accountability for their own performance. You can make structural errors, you can make tactical errors, but I mean, this was true in the Port game. It was true in the Collingwood game the week before as well, right? We had chances and we made skill errors, like basic skill errors, which you just can't legislate for as a coach, right? If you put together a structure and a team, you've got to expect the professionals to be able to pass to another player's chest. You've got to expect Riley Bice to take a chest mark instead of dropping it and giving away a goal, right? An uncontested mark, middle of nowhere, the back pocket, drops it, goal straight away, right?
Well, I mean, that's a bit more forgivable. He's 6 games in. I think Hayden McLean dropping the mark in the Port game is a bit more. But I don't know. Yeah, I think McLean is a bit more of you're a fan of his. But there's been certainly individual moments where you go, that's a skill error. And then that feeds into bad decision making, and then it all unravels. So
yeah. I am a massive McLean fan, and actually there was a moment in the third quarter which really summed it up for me. And I'm a huge fan of his work. I love his effort. I love his kicking. I love his tackling. I really do. But there was a point where he hand passed it on the boundary, I think, to Francis, and then laid, let's call it a half-hearted shepherd, right? I don't think there's enough shepherding in our game anyway. It frustrates me that we don't shepherd ball. But, put his arms up as if to kind of shepherd, but there was no effort in it. And it was Mac Andrews came around the side, and instead of Francis getting the ball off inside 50 for a potential opportunity, just walks around McLean, smothers the ball out, and it's a throw into a clearance, which I suspect we lost. And that's a player I expect. His best I don't expect him to get every week, and I could say this to Heaney, I could say to any one of those players, right? They have a level which is their best, which is great to see, but we don't expect them to get there every week. But the distance between the best and what was served up on Sunday is too great, right? You can't have a distance of that good and then what they delivered on Sunday.
Certainly not of a team that is of our standing, really.
Yeah.
And over a prolonged period of time, but also recently, right? We were in the grand final last year, and it's largely the same team, right? Apart from some of these big outs, right? But Rampy, Lloyd, McInerney, Roberts, right? They all just kicked directly to the Suns, I put it down to there not being enough yellow on that bloody Guernsey, mate. No, I don't. That's flippant, obviously. But these are the guys that you don't expect to just kick to the opposition. You're like, what? I know we're under pressure. I know we've got nothing. But it's just skill. It's skill error. And I don't expect it from Rampy and Lloyd. I'm a little bit more forgiving to to Roberts because he's still under 50 games, unbelievably. McInerney, he's one of these players. So I don't know if I mentioned it already, but Paul Roos after the Port game and the Globetrotter comment, Juzzy had been out for that ridiculous 3-match suspension, but he's sort of in this mix of players that seem to play when it's kind of when we're running and winning and kicking and it's looking good. But I'd probably put Blakey, Chad Warner. Who else would I put in that mix? Maybe Haywood. Like the guys that I know can play to a much higher level, but they don't seem to be doing the hard work at the moment. And I don't know. It's like they're amazing players, and I love all of them. But I'd rather them, do the 1%ers and the basics, and then go forward that way, and rather than try and bite off more than you can chew and turn it over. It's just.
I mean, trying to spray 60-meter passes into the middle on your second get bang back from a suspension. It's just bad decision making, right? Just retain the ball. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Noddy, yeah, look, it's a couple of very disappointed Swans fans here, and many more out there, I know. But we are still Swans fans after all, and we are positive, at least big picture. So, Noddy, let's go for the bond medal, right? Let's find some rubies in the dust, as it were.
I like that. I'll come back to that comment.
Any well, you go first. 1 point. The man who's had several points already this season.
Rowie, he's just he captained the side this game, and I mean he's a guy who can hold his head up high. I know that he had a pretty quiet third quarter, but so did the whole team. So I think that just his consistency, and we know what we're getting from him. 20 disposals, probably 10 contested possessions. I'm not reading the stats for this game. I'm just going off. I know what he's doing this year. It's predictable, it's consistent, and it's of effort. And look, there were moments in that third quarter where his tackling efficiency wasn't where it normally would be, but like you can usually bank him for 20, 10, and 5+ tackles, and you know what you're going to get. You're going to get two-way running. You're going to get hard play,
It's the work, isn't it? You said it yourself. The hard yards, right?
He just works hard, and I feel like he's one of a handful of guys at the moment who epitomise Bloods footy, and that's disappointing because Bloods footy is about team effort, and it's not about I don't know. I think that's all I've got to say about Rowie, mate. Like, I'm not going to go too much into stats because it's one of those games where it's sort of it was tough. It was a tough game, right? But I don't know. How about you? 2 points, mate.
2 points. Wonderful first half. And to be fair, he's had a good season if he's not hit the heights of last year. Fairly predictably, Isaac Heaney. A couple of good goals. Again, was in all of the good things in the first half that we got those goals, the 10 goals from. Good marking, good kicking, good around the contest. You can feel there's a butt coming. The butt is what happened after halftime. I like to see. It wasn't. I don't think it was a lack of effort, but just a disappearing act, really. But look, did enough again, as he has throughout the season to show what he's capable of, at least in a couple of quarters. So fingers crossed. We love Heaney's work. We just want to see 4 quarters of it. What we know is capable.
He got that corky late as well, so hopefully he's I'm sure he'll be fine. He usually plays banged up, but he's just we can't win off the back of one guy. And it's crazy to think we've got Chad Warner, who's just been extended, right? So we got him through to free agency, 2 more years. He's on like 1.35 average over those 2 seasons, which is one of the top paid players. And we know what he can do, right? And he did elements of that in the first half, but it's that harder effort that we'd love to see him add to his game.
The Jude Bolton style game, hey?
Yeah. Brett Kerr, like just tackle, dare I say it, Luke Parker. But so congrats to Parks, obviously 300 games. That was a bit of a tough, bittersweet one. And Sammy Reid, giving him the Guernsey beforehand and then carrying him off with Jack Darling. But anyway, this is a Swans podcast, not a bloody Roos podcast. But Mate, 3. Well, there's that many Swans at North Melbourne. We almost could. We could do a little section at the end. It's like, how are the ex-Swans playing at the Roos? But
let's
anyway.
go 3 points. Noddy, I did it last week, so you can talk us through them. Let's get drum roll first, please. Back-to-back 3-pointers for Francis. Did it again.
Yep, you said rubies in the dust, mate, and I thought that was a bit of the Ginger Prince, rubies in the dust. Red. He's playing great. He's playing great footy. He's playing with confidence, and he's playing to keep his spot. He knows that there's Amadi and McDonald to come back in, and he's fighting. And I mean, it's a crazy state of affairs. And no offense, because I've been hoping that he can really show, because this is a previous pick 6, right? Bombers took him at 6, and he's never really lived up to the hype. And it's tricky. Look at our Dill Stevens at pick 5, but he's sort of in that. He's not quite a third tall, but he's not quite a key position. And is he a forward? Is he a defender? But he's our most, over the past 2 weeks. He's our guy. And prior to that, it was the discovery of Bice, really. But Aaron Francis, who would have thought it? Just playing really well. He almost kicked that goal in the third. He probably could have gone to one of the several players that were open. But if anyone was going to kick it, it was probably going to be him at that point. Aaron Francis.
I met him a few weeks back with my daughter, and he was a lovely guy to boot. So yeah,
I bet he looks like an upstanding gent, and he's in that age category that's just, he hasn't quite got 100 games yet, through his past experience. The Bombers not really using him, or form and all that sort of stuff. A few injuries here and there, but 27-year-old. What do you say? Hashtag. What's your hashtag?
It's a bit of a tongue twister. Most underrated utility in the AFL. Hashtag.
Minus the goal. Obviously, he didn't kick a goal this game. He had the 3, almost 4 last week. But that's who we're saying. Him and Laddams are sort of covering what we think Amadi and McDonald would or could be doing.
Yep.
And that's okay. But it's everything else that we're lacking. But I guess we should probably have a few honourable mentions while we're here, just to keep the positivity flowing.
Yeah, I'll do one. Just on the effort theme. We loved Francis's effort. Look, Bice, again, he tried very hard, right? Made some errors, but he didn't stop trying, and he is, I mean, to your point, he is, I don't know if this is 4th game or something. I think it's probably there.
Yeah, something like that, 3, 4.
Very young in his career, right? And a tough situation, right? That was the first time he's been in that situation in an AFL context, at least a professional AFL context. So, again, errors, but you can see the effort, right? I can accept the loss when the effort's there, and Francis and Bice, I thought Bice had more skill errors, but still kept going right all the way through, which I respect at least. So honourable mention.
Yeah. 6 games for Miami Bice, mate. So yeah. He's been one of the finds, obviously. I will put Matty Roberts in there, and again, he made some skill errors, but the whole team did. But he really put his body on the line several times, intercepting, and it seemed like one of those games where he was trying, and he actually was thrown into the middle a couple of times, not centre bounce, but in and around stoppage. And I mean, he grew up as a mid forward, and he's carved out his existence so far in the halfback, as a lot of good midfielders do at the Swans. Think of Cal Mills and Jared McVeigh before him. But yeah, look, I just think he's one of our lowest games. He's 37 games, and plays like a bit of a general back there. And yeah, I mean, he's probably got the confidence to do that, knowing that he's got a proper general, Rampy out there as well in support. But again, like as we've touched on, Rampy and Lloyd and some of these other guys are probably for their on-field leadership for sure. But yeah, it's a tough one. It's a real tough one. But anyway, I digress. Any other honourable mentions? I mean, Blakey with his late 3 as a bit of a.
I'm going to touch on Blakey, and not because of the goals. Although, look, I'm a big numbers on the board fan in all sports, right? And 3 goals are 3 goals, right? So you shouldn't look away from that. But yes, they came when they came. But I do feel like this ping ponging of players should cease, in my view. I think some of it's been driven by injuries, but I don't think it's working. Right? I mean, arguably you could say putting Blakey up front worked to a degree, but I think the flipping of McCartan back and forth. I think Blakey going up. I think Heaney's kind of in and out of spots a bit. I just think it looks a little desperate. I think it looks like we don't really know what our best 22 is or where they should be playing. And I'm sure it's tricky for the players. We talked about this before, like for McCartan, right? But it's hard to be defending 1 minute and then attacking the next minute because you totally different mindset, right? You got different responsibilities. You got to be in different spots. It takes time to appreciate your spot. Cox doesn't need me to tell him any of this, right? And it's just my view. But I look, Blakey got 3 goals, but it was more notable for me for the maybe the counter argument is when you've conceded 12, you've got to try and do something different. I'm sure that probably is it.
I think that is though the Harps. I'll mention something that I think that and this seems to be a bit of a blanket response from all AFL plans when your team is not playing how you want them to play, and it's when you're strategically beaten or tactically beaten, and then you don't pull any punches to try and counter that, and it's the old no plan B. And so I sort of saw Coxie swinging the magnets as an attempt to break whatever funk we were in, to try and kickstart something. But again, I agree with you. It's reactive, but it's to try and do something like just, Corey Warner went back, Roberts went in the guts. As you said, Blakey and Francis switched. Like there's only so many things that he can do to try and change things up. I mean, Heaney is so damaging on every line, right? We know what he can do up front. We know what he can do through the gut. He's as good. He'd probably be an amazing key defender, right? It'd be nice to have a few more Isaac Heaneys, but
Blakey,
I think
Blakey started up top for us as well, didn't he?
That's true. His junior career was as a key forward essentially, and he started with us there, and then moved to the wing, and then found his home on the halfback. But I think he's been forced to play more third tall key defender this year, and we talk about it regularly. He's much better he's 196 centimeter, but think of him as an 185 run and gun off the halfback. It's just that he's tall and he adds that sort of aerial support. But he's obviously skilled though. Like the goals themselves were great goals, but just junk time.
Yeah. Look,
Caden Cleary.
Yeah, he did have a good game.
Shout out to him. I think there's still a few non-believers out there, but he is a gun, and he's going to be a gun in the guts, just hard at it. I see him being like a Rowie type, just working hard wherever he is. He's a Sydney boy, Allies. He played in that all-conquering under-18 Allies team, and he's sub 10 games or whatever he is. So he's going to come in and out, but he's starting to really put it together. And I mean, in a season like we're having, especially until all these players come back, just keep giving him games. And to be honest, I would be doing the same with Gus Sheldrick. I'd have both those guys out there, but I don't really. It seems like Cleary's got the spot over Sheldrick because Henley has had such a good start to his career as well. So, yeah.
Well, look, let's take a breath, right?
I'll have a sip of beer as well, mate.
I want to say as well that we are Swans fans through and through, right? We all of us on this and doing the sound love the Swans enough to go every week, and some of us go even away games, and to spend hours doing a podcast every week. So we're not going anywhere, and we're 100% behind the team. But let's look ahead to what is going to be very hard. Sydney Stoush 21 or something probably by now, Donnie.
Oh yeah, 20. It's some Roman numeral. Yeah, whatever we just don't recognise it as Battle of the Bridge. It's Powell's Creek Kapow or the Stoush, Sydney Stoush. If I hear Battle of the Bridge one more fucking time, I swear to God. Anyway, so mate,
Tough game.
As we lead into the Giants game, I think we should probably talk about the fixture because it sort of leads into that.
Yeah,
And this
sure.
is sort of, it talks about like where we're at, implications of the ladder and after that loss to the Suns. So what are we now? We're 2-5, 2
2-5.
wins,
Yep.
5 losses.
Yep,
And those
right.
5 losses have effectively come against first, second, third, fourth, current, plus Port, who are equal 5th, but 10th on percentage.
Yeah.
So if they'd had a few games go their way, they could be 5th. We will face the Giants, who are 6th at the moment, and the Crows in a few weeks, who are currently 5th. Yeah, so there's a lot of, like, we've had a very hard run. I think it's been acknowledged we've got the second hardest run to this point in the season. So that's something we have to acknowledge, plus being hit by the injuries. We don't know what's happening with the high performance stuff, but it is having an effect. And it's difficult for a first year coach who's building his culture and his voice when he can't pull all his punches. So it's challenging. But as we lead into the Giants game, it's one of was it 6 more games before the bye, and it's a critical chunk that we just have to somehow win because there are a lot of Swans fans saying pull the plug, season's over, let's just get draft picks, and so I'm not quite there. I think that there's and I feel like Cox is too competitive to do that, and I think as a club we're too proud to do that at this point. But yeah, the next run of games are so important because obviously after the bye we got a 10 game run home when these players are coming back. And as we've all said, and as Sammy said multiple times, we'd rather be down now and losing to top teams than flip it like we did last year and come limping home over the line. So we're in a good spot so long as we can do what we can against the Giants and some of these other games coming up. But it's a big if at the moment, especially after that Suns performance.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we only had one out then. We had Patton out.
Yeah.
What do you... Same team, really? That sounds almost ridiculous to say, but what do you reckon?
Well, so who came in? Henley came in for him, not really like for like. I mean, I would like to see Gus Sheldrick come in. Again, you're not really. I mean, they have been playing Caleb Mitchell as a halfback more this year, like wing halfback, perhaps for that depth. I think. I mean, Wicks's severity. I mean, it's hard to think he'll be up for this weekend, but he might if it was only light or minor. But I wouldn't rush him back because he's been quite a revelation as well this year. So I don't really. There's not too many more guys that you can probably put. I mean, you could probably put Corey Warner back there and then bring in Sheldrick, start Henley and have Sheldrick off the sub. But I just think Sheldrick's the type of player that plays up. So I don't know why we wouldn't be putting him up there and giving him games. He's out of contract this year. I'm confused why he's not getting games. But I mean, I've seen his VFL performances and they are not setting the world on fire. I acknowledge that. But I just think, with the team he's got around him at the moment, it's tricky because, he's an in and under player. If he's dishing it out, I mean, his ball use is not great. But let's all remember Rowie 2 seasons ago where his job was to tackle, and if it landed in his hands, it was just to hack the ball forward. So his kicking efficiency was like 40% or something. But so, you've got your role. But I just don't know how he's not able to find a spot in the team at this point. But
maybe this week's the week.
Maybe. I hope so. Just because I think he's got more to give. He's got more to show, and I think that, he's had an unfortunate year last year with injuries, so it's effectively his 3rd year. But I think he's ready to go. So he's just got to be given a chance. But look, I don't know, mate. Did you watch the Giants game against the Dogs?
No, I did not. No.
Yeah, they got smashed by a young. And this is the killer thing. It was like 7 players sub 20 games or something like that that the Dogs put out there. True Bevo form. But their senior players carried them. Bont, Libber, Harms, who's a Kennedy. These 2 guys they brought in. So and their halfbackers as well. Losing Sam Darcy is huge, but it's been covered. They're kicking goals elsewhere. So the Giants lost by, I think it was a similar margin, like 40 odd points down in Canberra. So which surprised me because I thought they were going to do a pretty good, pretty easy job on them. But so they're going to come back firing, and I'd like to think that we are too because we've just been pantsed. But I feel like, yeah, I mean, I think the Giants are playing better footy in general. I think they've got a better, healthier list. This is going to be one hell of a stoush, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And as you mentioned, looking elsewhere in the competition, Carlton making a run for the flag, I see as well. Big win.
Yeah, I tell you what, it only takes a little bit for them to really get going, doesn't it? But I guess if you
totally changed from Carlton fans hating Carlton to Carlton fans loving Carlton.
Yeah, it's funny the swings. But look, after the Giants, it's Essendon away, Carlton home, Melbourne away, Adelaide home, Richmond away. So that's that chunk of games where I'm saying there's a few unlikelies in there. There's a few 50-50s or more than 50-50s. But it's so important that we get majority wins just to give ourselves half a chance in that run home. Like in that run home, we've got, as it stands, we've got a couple of games against top 8 teams, but more against teams on the cusp, and a few lower ranked teams. So there's a possibility, so long as we can bank some wins now, when the cavalry come home, we can get a, we can come home with a, what's the saying? What's the cliche? Full head of steam.
Sail, my man.
Say again.
A wet sail.
A wet sail. Look at you, nautical.
Or a spinning torp, or anyway, you name it.
That's it.
Noddy,
stop torping on the. What's your tell Gaz to stop torping it.
Yeah, that's a story for another time.
It is.
But Noddy, I might ask you for a final thought.
Yeah, mate.
I'm just I don't know if the Swans players are listening. To be honest, I doubt they are. But I just, if I were there, I'd just say, look, we just need to see your heart, boys. That was a performance which I think hurt because it looked, I'm sure you were trying, but it looked like you weren't giving 100%. And talk about 1% as 101%. So I don't mind losing. I don't mind losing to better teams. I don't mind losing to comparable teams. But when we play so far below our level of effort and skill, that's what disappoints, I think, most Swans fans. So I would totally on their side. I've got my fingers crossed for Sunday, but I just want to see a performance where everyone can walk off the field or away from the stadium feeling proud to be a Swans fan.
That's right. And look, I know we went over it a lot, but like the Suns are primed, and the AFL is pumped than their fair share of first round draft picks into that bloody club, right? And they've poached a 3-time premiership cap, so it's their time to at least make the 8, and they've certainly been given a pretty nice start to the season, and so we can't forget that. But it's about the effort, as you said, and so what better time to bring that effort back than a Sunday Arvo game at the SCG against our little brothers, our younger cousins in the Stoush.
That's
and
right.
Like we should just give just a proper skirmish of a Stoush. What's a nautical battle? Is that a battle? What do you call a fight on water? Is that a
I think it's a skirmish, isn't it?
a skirmish? Is that a skirmish? Yeah. Obviously the players don't play on water, but there's plenty of water in the harbour, which is where one of the teams is based. But yeah, I mean that's the red and white one. But what did you think before we go? And this is
You're going to say the black shorts, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. Beehive. What do you think?
You know what? Actually, I was watching my wife the replay, and she said, "What's with the shorts?" It was the first time. It was honestly like the first thing she noticed. She said, "Why are they black or dark blue? I mean, are they too close to the Suns? Red shorts?" They said, "Shouldn't they be wearing white shorts?" And I thought, I would never have thought of any of that. But yeah, I did think it looked a little weird.
So that's the retro. So that's the clash, and we had that in our preseason game against the Suns for the same reason. It was the South Melbourne strip for, I think it's home games. I always forget. Before colour TV, they wore black for home and white away shorts. So that's how you could tell who was where. I mean, they're all in in Melbourne, aren't they? But that's how you could tell if you're playing at Arden Street as opposed to, wherever you're playing, Punt Road or whatever. So that the black, but which I don't understand, because if you're playing away, you play white. But then, so maybe it's the other way around. I'm sure all the Melburnians know that rule. But that's the history to the strip. I don't love. I love as much red and white as possible, and that's why the gather round strip kind of haunts me a bit, even though it was for a good reason, for the blood donation. But yeah, I don't know. I think that probably is the only time we're gonna see that, because we don't have too many other clashes with clubs. It's usually when we play Brisbane and the Lions away that we wear the white, because there's the maroon and the red, obviously. So there's a genuine clash. I don't mind it, but if I do love a good conspiracy and a superstition, but if that's the kind of footy we're going to play in that strip on the Gold Coast, just get rid of it. Just bring on the white shorts. Look, it's cool. It's a great nod to heritage. Obviously, there was it was disappointing to lose SMFC off the back of the Guernsey for the gather round to create more space for one of the sponsors. And I know Sydney fans love the history of the club, obviously, and acknowledge the heritage. And so we like to embrace that when we play away in Melbourne. I love playing the red V. And then you have the clash like you do in Queensland there. So it's all good. Look, I think, it's just, I try to take it easy on myself. I'm like, I better not wear those socks again. I better carry my beer in the other hand. But really, it's up to the players and the effort they show. And I just hope they bounce back for Coxie, because I think, his first year of a fourth year contract, he's had a lot of things go against him this year. But one thing you can't deny is effort. And you've already said it. You don't mind losing, but there's a way in which you can do it, or you should do it. And I think that's all the fans want to see, is just effort.
It is.
Have a go.
Yep. That's all I want to see. I agree.
Have a go. I mean, we probably didn't talk enough about the Giants are stacked, right? They've got a great list. They don't have too many injuries really, and so an amazing back line. They've got guns all over the field. They are primed. Yeah, as we said, coming off a pretty big loss in Melbourne. Monica in Canberra. So they're going to be hungry. So I just hope that we can match that level. Toby Green's probably he's going to do something crazy, isn't he? You can always rely on Toby Green to do some random act of madness.
Yeah, spice things up a little.
That's it.
Look, I will say as well, I think if they get going, I think it'll be a very, very loud Swans crowd, right? I think there's a lot of emotion they want to let out. So I think if they get on a good foot, it'll really pump up the volume.
Well, that's it, mate. I mean, the AFL has thrust this local rivalry upon us, the Stoush. So I guess we're running with it, And you don't like to be beaten by your crosstown rivals. So, I guess Luke Parker can't win the, what's it called? The Brett Kirk medal, isn't it? He basically had ownership of that for however long. I think Goulden's won a couple, or one at least. He won't be in the running. But look, I think more than accolades, individual accolades, we want that team effort across 4 quarters, mate.
That's right. Back to basics, 101%, 110% even.
Blood footy.
Yeah, that's right. And we are all behind the boys, right? We all want to see it turn around. And this time next week, mate, we could be happy as Carlton fans.
I don't know if we get that. We're probably a little bit more conservative, but who knows? Maybe we'll be taking the lid off.
A week is a long time in sport. Anyway, if you listen this far, you really need to get your head checked, frankly. But thank you for listening this far. If you enjoyed what you heard, give us a like and a follow. We'll be back next week, and hopefully we're talking about a smashing of the Giants in the Stoush. Noddy?
Mate, whether in person or here again on the potty, we look forward to whenever you can join us next time. But until then, up the Bloods and Kanye Swatties! Come on, Swatties! Come on, bounce back. We can do it. Here we go.